and typecasting. So type conversion is an implicit conversion. What is type conversion? Type conversion is an implicit conversion which will be performed by your compiler. It will be performed by your compiler. What do you mean by typecasting? If you are willing to convert one type to another type, if the compiler is unable to perform that type of conversion, then you have to explicitly perform type conversion, that is called typecasting. So explicit type conversion or explicitly casting one type to another type is called typecasting. Typecasting is explicit type conversion, whereas type conversion is implicit and it will be performed by the compiler. Then why compiler performing only some set of conversion and why it is not bothering about other set of conversion? So what type this compiler will do is it can able to convert, that means it can able to perform widening conversion. What type of conversion it can perform? It will perform widening conversion. What compiler do? Compiler will perform widening. For suppose if you want to reduce the size or if you want to give some larger data to some smaller data type, then you have to perform explicit type conversion. That means wherever you have narrowing conversion, then you have to perform typecasting. So what do you mean by widening and narrowing? So in data types, what is the order of data types we have? We have byte. Next, what is next to byte? Next to byte is short. After short, you will have char. Next to char, we have int, then long. So I'm writing all these data types in an increasing order. So this one occupies least memory space, or we can consider byte as less data type or with a small memory occupancy. Long, after long we have float. After float we have double. What is the order of data types? First we will have byte, short, char, int, long, float and double. For suppose if you want to convert character type to integer type or character type to long type or int to float, int to double, it will be performed implicitly by the compiler. This task will be performed by the compiler. That means whenever you want to increase the size, that means whenever you are assigning integer value to some long or some float or double, it will be performed by the compiler itself. But whenever you want to convert float value to int type or integer type to char type or char to short, then you have to perform explicit type conversion. If you don't perform explicit type conversion, your compiler will tells incompatible type. So when you have to perform explicit conversion, if the type is incompatible, then you have to cast. How you will perform casting? Simply before the value, whatever value you want to typecast, that means for suppose this value is of type integer, but I want to convert this value to short. So you have to specify the variable name or value here. Before that value, within parentheses, you have to specify to which type you want to convert this value. For suppose this value is of type integer, I want to convert this integer value to short value. So you have to specify it within the brackets. If you specify anything in this format, then that meaning is you are performing explicit type conversion. What does it mean? You are performing explicit type conversion. So here, if you see in this example, here in this example, here A is of what type? A is of type integer, and byte, B is of type byte. So I want to save A value into B. But what is the type of A? A occupies 4 bytes of memory, whereas byte, it occupies only 1 byte. So I want to save 4 bytes data into 1 byte memory location. So in order to forcibly moving the data into B, I have to perform typecasting. What I have to do? I have to perform typecasting, and this process is called narrowing conversion. What is this process called? This process is called as narrowing conversion. So let's see one example for this. So I'm just stopping. Okay, let's see. So let's see one example for explicit type conversion and implicit type conversion. As I already so any Java program must have one class. Within that class, we need to write main method, and that main method should be declared as public static. So next. So let's take int a equal to 10. I'm assigning integer value to 10. Next, I'm taking one float b. So among these two, which one occupies more space, whether it is integer or float? Ma, please respond. Please unmute yourself and please respond. Which occupies more space, either integer or float?
Float.
Float. Yes. So if I want to save this integer value into B, then what happens? Does it gives any error? Does it show any error? For suppose if I want to save A value into B, that means smaller data type value into larger data type. Can I perform this? Let's see what will be the value printed. System dot out dot println. So I'm just printing values of B comma A. Oh, have to reduce A plus A plus B comma. So whatever data you have given inside system.out.println, you have to give it in the format of string. So whatever data you will give inside this println, you have to specify in the format of string. So to print constant values, you have to give it in quotes, and to print some value which is present in the variable, you have to write it outside the quotes. So in order to concatenate these two string values or these two values, you have to use plus. So in Java, we don't have any format specifiers like %d, %f. We can directly write in this format by concatenating all the strings. So let's come run. So okay, let's run. So here if you observe, A value is 10, B value is 10.0. So that means I am widening the type. I am widening A type to bit larger type. That means int occupies 4 bytes, whereas float occupies 8 bytes. So if I perform it in reverse order or vice versa, what happens? Let's see. For suppose B value equal to 20 some 89. I want to save B value to A. Let's see what will be the output. What type of error you can able to see? Can you able to see this? So incompatible type, possibly loosey conversion from double to float. And here in next line also you are getting one more error, that is incompatible type. So I want to remove these errors from this program. Then what I have to do? So first error is in this particular line. That means, so if I use any decimal value in Java or C, it will be considered as double. So first I have to consider it as float. So in order to assign some floating value, I have to suffix that value with F. Next. Now I want to save this floating value to integer variable. So what I have to do here in this case, I have to perform explicit type conversion. That means you have to cast your data. That means how you will cast? Within parentheses, you have to specify to which type you want to narrow your information. This process is called narrowing. So from floating type, I want to move it to integer type. So I have to specify the same int B. Now let's run. So can you able to see this? B value is 20.89. When coming to A will consider only the value which is of non-decimal type. It will consider only the value which is non-decimal type. I mean the value which is present before decimal point. It don't consider whatever values that are present after decimal. So after decimal point you have 89. So your compiler simply remove that 89 from your number whatever you are assigning. So while performing narrowing, sometimes you will lose some information. Okay, did you understand what is explicit type conversion and implicit type conversion? Next. So what is the order of data types? So first least memory occupying data type is byte. After byte you have short, next char, int, long, float, double. If you want to convert lower type to higher type, you can directly assign those values and your compiler will perform type conversion implicitly. But if you want to assign some greater values to least data type, then you have to perform explicit type conversion by using cast. How you will cast? Within parentheses, you have to specify to which data type you want to lower or reduce your data. By using this casting, you can perform both conversion with incompatible type as well as compatible type. Next, any doubts in this type conversion or type casting? Any doubts up to now? Any doubts? Okay. Next topic is arrays. What do you mean by arrays? What do you know about arrays? What do you know about arrays? So array, what is the basic definition for array? Array is a variable which occupies continuous memory it is a group of similar type, or it is a homogeneous group of elements which occupies continuous memory location, and all those variables will possess same name. All those variables will have common name, and all the variables having homogeneous type. What is an array? Array is a group of liked variables that are referred to a common name. So within arrays we can create either one-dimensional array or two-dimensional, more dimensions. We can able to create one or more dimensions. Did you understand what is an array? For suppose if I want to create 10 variables. In your class, we have 44 students. For each student in my subject, I want to store your marks. So for each student, should I take one variable? For student 1, S1, student 2, S2, student 3, S3, student 4, S4, in that way. How many variables I need? Totally I need 44 variables for student 1 to student 44 to store your marks. I don't want to waste those many variables. I don't remember those many variables names. So how can I handle all these variables in better way? By creating an array. If I create a student array of size 44, then I can able to store all the student information. That too, all that information will occupies continuous memory location. All the data will be stored one after the other. If I declare each variable for each student, one variable will be at one location and the second variable will be at some other location. There is no restriction that all the variables will store in continuous memory location. So that it took more time to get information of one variable and other variable. For suppose if I store all the variables in a continuous memory location, then what happened? After using the first variable, next variable is immediately available beside the first variable. So I can able to use it in a better way, in a easy way or in better way, so that I can reduce time required to search for a variable, and I can able to store all these variables with one common name. When I can create a variable, if all these variables, for suppose here I have 44 variables, if all these variables of same type, then only I can create an array of that variables. So you can create array of any data type. That means either you can create a byte array or short array, int array, long array, float array, double array, or you can also create arrays for the objects. For suppose if you want to create a group of objects, then also you can use arrays to create that group of objects, because all the objects belongs to one class will possess same memory or will possess same behavior and same memory. I mean, they all require same memory. So in that, in arrays we have, firstly we will discuss about one dimensional array. What do you mean by one dimensional array? So we have a list of variables, or we have a vector of variables. We have only single dimension. That means all the variables will be stored in linear order. You don't have any other dimension. For suppose if you have x dimension, y dimension, all the variables will be stored in only x dimension or in x coordinate. So how to declare any variable? So first you have to specify type space variable name. Variable name means whatever name you want to given for the array, and open bracket, open square and close a square bracket. In this way you will create an array. So how you will create an array? By specifying data type space array name, open bracket, close bracket. In C, if you, in Java, if you create any variable in this format, a variable will be created, and that variable is not referring to any physical location. What this declaration tells you means you have declared this variable, and this variable will have, elements of type so and so. Whatever data type you have specified, that type, that type of elements this array is going to possess. But you don't get any physical memory location in your system or in your device where you are executing this program. For suppose if you want to get physical memory location, then you have to use new operator. So here array is also considered as one object, and you can create values to this arrays dynamically. How you will allocate the values or how you will create values in Java, everything we will create dynamically. So if you want to give physical memory location for this array, you have to use new operator. This is one way of creating physical memory location to an array. How you have to create, ma? Let's see. So let's see. I'm taking instead of this compiler, I will take one more compiler. Let's say this class name as arrays int a of. If I give in this way, what happens? Let's see. So after executing this particular step, no object is created. That means no memory location is created. For suppose now, if I assign a equal to new of What type you want to create an array? I want to create an array of type integer, and I want 10 memory locations. Now what happened? Let's see. So whenever you have given a equal to new int of 10, then physical memory location will be allocated. Can you able to see this? You can able to provide physical memory location for this variable a. Until that point, you don't get any physical memory location. This is one way of defining, or you can combine these two lines into a single line, like a of int a of array equal to new int of 10. You can also combine these two lines into a single line. Got it? For suppose if you want to initialize this array, you can write all the variables beside new, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can, if you don't initialize any value, by default, whenever you are creating physical memory location, your compiler will gives value 0 to all the members. I mean members in this particular array. There. So here you should not get. So whenever you are initializing values to any array, you should not specify the size here. So now, what are the values initialized in this array? So I have created an array, and it will take the size of whatever values that you have defined. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are the values. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you are giving values to the array. This is called initialization. So by creating, I mean giving physical memory to the array, that means by giving new space type within the brackets, giving size, this is called instantiation. What is this process is called as? This is called as instantiation. Sorry. What is this called as? Instantiation. So by using new operator, if you are giving physical memory location, that is called instantiation. It is not only for arrays, it is for anything. That is, if you're creating physical memory for objects, that is called object instantiation. Giving values to this variable or object while declaring itself. That means if you are providing values in this format, that means while declaring you are providing values, this is called initialization. So here what you are doing, you are performing both instantiation and initialization. If you don't initialize the variable, by default your compiler will initialize it to 0 for all integers, and for booleans it will initialize to false. For suppose here my type is boolean, what it will do, it will initialize all the memory location with false. For suppose here data type is float or double, then it will initialize all the variables with 0.0, 0.0. For suppose we have some other reference value, then it will initialize all the variables with null. Okay. Next, this is one way of initialization, and the other way is this much distance. Int p. So you can also do in this way, like you can directly assign values. So you can either do it in this way or in this way. If you initialize values directly to this array, compiler will instantiate your array. It will do it implicitly. So you can either follow this method or you can follow this method. For suppose you are not initializing your array while declaring, try to follow this particular order. That means without giving values, try to write int a equal to new int of. So in later point, if you want to assign values to the array, then you for sure you have to create physical memory location. Otherwise, you can't able to access that particular array. Ma, understood up to this point? Ma, any doubts up to this point? Ma? Okay. Next. So in the same way, we can create array for multi-dimensional. I mean, you can create multi-dimensional array also. That means you can create 2-dimension or 3-dimension or 4-dimension or n-dimension. How you will represent n-dimension means based on number of square brackets you are using. If you are using single square bracket, that indicates 1-dimensional array. If you are using 2 square brackets, then what does it mean? It means 2-dimensional array. So based on the dimension, you have to increase number of square brackets and you have to specify with each dimension occupies how many slots. For suppose here in this 2-dimensional array, we have 4 rows and 5 columns. So this array occupies 4 rows and 5 columns. If you want to give more than these values, then in Java you will get array out of bound exception. You don't get any error. You will get array out of bound exception. So it will be raised by the compiler and you can't able to execute if you want to use which is not in the range. So here in this picture, you can able to see conceptual view of 4x5 2-dimensional array. So I think you already know how to use a 2-dimensional array and 3-dimensional array. Yes or no? For row 1, row index will be 0. For row 2, row index will be 1. For row 3, row index will be 2. For row 4, row index will be 3. That means indexing starts from 0. Next, for column 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. For suppose I want to use this particular value. So firstly, you have to specify row number and then column number. Which row this element belongs to? This element belongs to first row and second column. So how can I use this particular value? I can use it in this format. For suppose this array is A of row index value, and in next bracket you have to specify column index value. In the same way, if you have 3 dimensions, you have to specify the other dimension also. First you will have plane, which plane, next you will have in each plane row number, then you will have column number. In that order you will get 3-dimensional array. Ma, understood about arrays? Any doubts? Any doubts in array? Next, very important concept is access modifiers in Java. What do you mean by access modifiers? So as name suggests, access modifiers tells you where you can access a particular class or variable or method, constructor or interface. What you can, what is the purpose of access modifier? By using this access modifier, it will explains you where I can use a particular class or variable or method or constructor interface, whatever you have defined, what is the scope or what is the range of that particular member or particular class, where I can use it. Like in C, you have 4 storage classes. What are the 4 storage? What are the 4 storage classes that are present in C? You have auto, static, register. What is the other one? Auto, static, register, and extern. So these storage classes will specify you what is the lifetime, what is the scope of the variables, and where you can able to use that particular variable. In the same way, in Java we have 4 access modifiers. What are those? Means first one, public, private, protected, and default. These are the 4 access modifiers. What are the 4 access modifiers you have in Java? You have public, private, protected, and default. What do you mean by public access modifier? What do you mean by public access modifier? So wherever you see public, that particular class or method or constructor can be used anywhere in Java, in any package within the same program or outside the other program where we import this particular class. For suppose in file 1.java I have created, in file 1.java I have, a1.java I have created class, I have created class A as public. So before class name you have to prefix it with public space class space A. Then if I import this particular Java file in another package or in different file, then also I can able to use the members of this particular class. So you can use members, variables, and whatever you have defined within the class, you can use all those variables within the same program or within the same package or outside the package or in any place in Java where you are importing this particular file. That is the meaning of public. What is the meaning of public? You can able to use this particular class, or you can able to use this class anywhere in the Java program or anywhere in any other file. Next one is private access modifier. What do you mean by private access modifier? Means whenever you have defined any variable or method or constructor as private, if you define you can't able to define one class as private, you should not define class and interfaces as private, because if you declare a class or interface as private, you can't able to use the functionality of that class, or you can't able to implement interface. So we don't give private access modifier for classes and interfaces. Please remember this. This private access modifier can be applicable only for methods, variables, and constructor. So what does it mean by private? What do you mean by private means? By giving private access modifier, you can able to access this particular method, variable, or constructor within the same class. You can't able to call these particular variables or methods in other class. You can't able to do that. This is the meaning of private. So you can't able to use these private variables outside the class or outside the other packages. Next one is protected access specifier. What is protected access specifier means? Again, in this protected access specifier also, you can't able to give this protected access specifier for classes and interfaces. You can only give this protected access specifier only for methods, fields, methods, or variables. What is the meaning of this protected means? You can able to use variables, methods, constructor within the same class or within the child class. So where I can use within the same class and within the subclass or child class. So you will understand what is child class, everything, while we are talking about inheritance. If you are acquiring any properties from the parent class, for suppose you are a child, you are everyone will get some properties from your parents. Some will acquire some facial features, some acquire some behavior. In that way, if you want to acquire some features from the parent class, you have to perform inheritance. So while applying inheritance, if you place protected access specifier, then those variables or methods or constructor can be used in the same class as well as in the child class. For suppose your parents put some object as protected, that object can be accessible to them and it will be accessible to the children's of for your parents. It is accessible for them as well as to your siblings and to yourself. That is the meaning of protected. It is that object is not applicable for any other classes or any other members. That is the meaning of protected. Next access specifier is default specifier. What is default specifier? What is the meaning of default specifier means? So here, if you default specifier, we don't tell it explicitly. So if you don't give any access specifier, that means while creating a class or while creating a method or while creating variables, if you don't specify any of these three access specifiers, like if you don't specify public, protected, or private, then it will consider that particular class or variable or method as default. What is the purpose of this default specifier means? You can able to use that particular class or variable or methods in other class within the same package. That means within the same file, you can able to use that particular class or methods or variables. You can use that class members, but whereas you can't able to use the same members outside the class or outside the package. That means you can't able to use these default class members in another file. That is the meaning of default specifier. Did you understand the difference between what is private, protected, public, and default? Let's see here. Here you can able to see two example programs. This is, let's consider this one is the first program and this one is the second program. First program and second program. This program, I'm storing this program in a package name called, for suppose if you want to make any file as a package, any Java program as a package, before, at the starting line, you have to specify it as package space, whatever name you want to given to that file, you have to specify that name here. Okay. In this package, I'm creating this so-and-so class. How you will use this package members in another class means, so let's consider this is second Java file. In this Java file, I will import this package, import com.java9s.engines dot, which class you want to access? I want to access engine class, so dot engine. So within this particular file, I'm creating object for engine and I'm using functionality or method of that engine, which is, again here, if you observe, you can only use the methods which are of type public. Within the public class, you can't able to use all the methods and all the variables. You can't able to use. Only you can use the members which are created as public. ఏ మెంబర్స్కి అయితే పబ్లిక్ యాక్సెసిబిలిటీ ఉందో ఆ మెంబర్స్ ని మాత్రమే మీరు యూజ్ చేయగలరు. అర్థమవుతుందా? యూ కెన్ యూజ్ దీస్ పర్టిక్యులర్ methods within the same file. That means within the same first.java file, or you can use it outside the file. That means in second file, you can import the package and you can use this particular class. So generally we will create all top level classes as public, so that you can get the functionality of all those classes in all the subclasses. In your project, wherever you have topmost class, you will make the topmost class as public, so that you can use the functionality of that topmost class in all the programs, in all the modules in that package or in that project. Understood or not understood? Let's see one simple example for this. So here I'm creating one public class A. Let consider A is the class name. So in this class, I'm creating one method, and this method is not returning anything, so return type is void. I'm just creating sample method, so this method does not take any arguments, so just it will print something. Println inside a class sample method. So I'm just printing I'm inside a class sample. So now, so this is one class, and in another class I want to use this particular class. How can I use it? First I have to create object for that class. A, small a is the object name. I have to use new operator to create physical memory location, and this new is going to define memory space of what type? So the type of this object is A. So you have to specify type. Here you have to give constructor for that class. So if I don't give any constructor, what happens, ma? The constructor will be considered as default. Compiler will implicitly create one default constructor. So now I'm calling this particular sample method. Sample of. Let's run this code. Now here to show this, it's being a bit difficult. I will show you once again. So I think you have understand this concept. So there I can't create multiple files in online editor, so I can't able to do that. I will show this example sure in a later class. Next, default class level means so within the same class, within the same file, you can able to use another class members or methods with which either that member can be a public or default. If the member is public or default, you can able to use this particular class member in the another class which within the same package. If you observe here, both the package names are same. So in the same package, I'm creating class interest rate as well as class customer banking. In this customer banking, I have created object for this interest rate, and I want to access this credit card interest method. Can I able to use it? Yes, within the same package, I can able to use the class members which are defined as default. So here for default, we don't give any access specifier. So we don't give any access specifier for default type. Next one is, so here if you see in this example, these two belongs to different packages. So here it is .bank package and this is customer bank package. We are having these two programs in different packages. So I can't able to create object for this particular class. So if both the classes are within the same package, then I can able to use default classes in the other class. But if they belongs to different package, I can't able to use. That is the meaning of default. What is the meaning of default? I can able to use class, methods, variables within the same package. Next, protected and private is not of class level, as I already told you. Let's see one example for private. So within the same program, I'm creating class A. Within this class A, I'm creating private A, private void sample print ln inside sample method. But suppose now I'm creating object for this class A space, I'm creating an object obj equal to new class type. Next, now if I try to access variable of this A class, can I able to access it now? So whenever I have created any variable as private, I can't able to access that particular variable. It will gives you error. In the same way, if you want to call method of this class, what does it do? Again, it will show compile time error. So how I can use this private methods, or how I can use this private variable means I can able to use these methods inside the public method within the same class, or default methods within the same class. So within the same class, if I create some other method called sample2, so inside this method I can able to call sample method, like I will give one system.out.println inside sample2 method calling sample. Now here what I'm doing is I'm calling sample method. So within the same class, no need of giving instance mark. You can directly call it. If I run this program, what happens? Let's see. Sorry. So I can't able to call private access in A. So here sample is private access, so I can't able to call it because it is having private. So what I have to place here, I have to place 2, so that 2 is a default type, so I can able to call it. Object name dot sample. So what happens if I call in this way? First, default method is called. By using default method, I can able to access private method. How I can able to access? By using default methods or public methods, I can able to access private methods of that particular class. I can't able to use private members outside the class. So that is the meaning of private. Whenever you want to secure your data only specific to your class, you have to declare that method or that variable as private. So that variable can't be accessed outside the class. You will get error if you want to access it. That is the meaning of private. What is the meaning of private? You can't able to use this particular methods which are declared as private outside the, outside the class. It is not even outside the package or outside the file. You can't able to use these methods or these variables outside the same package. Next. So here is the summary list. If you are interested, please note down this summary for access modifier. So what is the visibility? And based on that visibility, let's see if we have created it as public, whether we can from the same class. I have class A. Within the same class, I want to use this public method in other method. Can I able to use it? Yes, I can able to use it within the same class. Protected also I can able to use method within the same class. For default I can. For private also I can able to use it from a class in the same package. For suppose if I have any public method or variable which I want to use in another class within the same package, that means within the line. So if I declare it as public, yes, I can use. Protected I can use, default I can use, but private I can't able to use outside the class. I can't able to use private members outside the class. Next case, from a class from outside the package. If I want to use my class members or class outside the package, so only in the case of public I can use my members outside the package. In all other cases I can't able to use it. I can't able to use it. It will show an error. From subclass outside the package, in case of public and protected it is yes, but in the case of default and private it is no. So you will understand about this protected access specifiers while we are discussing about inheritance. Next one is from the subclass in the same package. So default you can access with a public access specifier, protected as well as default. So based on this summary, where you want to see your method, whether you want to protect your method within the class, I mean your method has to be visible only within the class, then you have to create it as private. So private will have more protection and more security. But sometimes it will controls many actions. You can't able to reuse that data outside the class. So you have to use it very carefully. Next one is default. What is the default? So whenever you can create any variable or class or method as default, whenever you want to use that particular variable or method inside the package. Inside the package means inside the Java file where you are writing that class. If you want to use that variable throughout that particular program, then you have to declare that variable as default. Generally, we don't have any default keyword. Simple ga mid normal ga class A and తీసుకుంటే then by default your compiler will gives default as access modifier. Next one is protected. What is the meaning of protected? For suppose if you want to use methods class or methods or variables within the same package, ante meer ఏ class lo aithe rasaaro aa class lo aa package lo at the same time whatever inheriting your class, ఈ ప్రొటెక్టెడ్ ఉన్న క్లాస్ ని ఐ మీన్ ఈ ప్రొటెక్టెడ్ ఉన్న మెథడ్స్ ని ఆర్ వేరియబుల్స్ ని మీరు వేరే ఎక్కడన్నా ఇంపోర్ట్ చేసుకుని అక్కడ ఇన్హెరిట్ చేసుకుంటే దెన్ ఆల్సో యూ కెన్ use it. That means this can be accessible within the same package as well as within the same package as well as within the subclass. Child classes access cheyachu and same package value access cheyachu within the same package, and within the subclass I can able to use this protected variable. And the next one is public. What is the meaning of public? You can use these variables or methods or whatever things, you can use this within the class, outside the class, within the package, outside the package, anywhere you can use it by creating objects for that particular class. This is the meaning of public. I think you have understand the difference between public, protected, default and private. Remember this point, you have to be very careful while giving access modifier. If you give all the variables or all the methods as public, you will lose protection as well as you will lose your security. Why we have skipped from C to Java means for protecting our data. So if you give every variable as public, then you will lose your protection or you will lose the security. So that's the reason why you should not give all the variables as public or something. So you have to be very careful while giving this access modifiers. Did you understand the concept of access modifiers, ma? Did you understand what is access modifier? What is the meaning of how many access modifiers we have, and what is the meaning of access modifiers? Next. Look here for local variables. So here inside the method, if you have created any local variables, what do you mean by local variables? Inside the functions, you will write some, you will declare some variables. In the same way, inside the methods, if you are declaring any variable, this is considered as local variable. And for local variables, you don't have any access specifiers, because these local variables are accessible within this block. That means within these can be accessible within this method only. So it will live until this method completes its execution. So we don't have any access modifiers for local variables. Remember this point, huh? Next access, this is not a final, is not an access specifier. This comes under non-access specifiers. Let's know what is the meaning of final. I have already explained you what is final. What is the meaning of final? To create any method or any class as constant. You can't able to change it. You can't able to change that particular method or class or value. Then you have to create it as final. If you specify any class or method as final, you can't able to change. For suppose if you give final int a equal to 10. If I declare in this way, what is the meaning of this? A value is 10 in all the cases. You can't able to change a value. A value is fixed, and that value is 10 throughout the program execution. That is the meaning of final. So what is the final? Final comes under non-access specifiers. Next one. For suppose if you have make any method as final, you can't able to re-implement that particular method in the subclass or within the same class. You can't able to re-implement that method. So if you define that method is final. You can't able to so in next upcoming classes you will learn about what is overriding. So you can't able to re-implement, you can't able to redefine the same method. So if you define any method as final, remember this point, you can't able to re-implement it. What is re-implementing means? Within the child class, you can't able to redefine the ante, you can't able to re-modify the body of method. So when I'm talking about inheritance overridings, then you will understand about this re-implementation. Next one is class. If you declare any class as final class A, if you declare any class as final, what does the meaning of this means? You can't able to create or you can't able to extend this class. That means for A class, we don't have any child classes. It does not have child classes. You can't able to extend this particular class. That is the meaning of final keyword. If you prefix final keyword before class, this is what the meaning is. You can't able to extend this class. That means you can't able to create some childrens for this class. If it is final for method, you can't able to redefine that method. If you are creating final for any variable, you have only single value for that variable. You can't able to update this value throughout the program. That is the meaning of final non-access specifier. This comes under non-access specifier. Next to non-access specifier is static. What is this meaning of static? It is static for all the instance. So whenever you have create any method or file variable as static, it is belongs to the class. What does it mean? It is belonging to the complete class. It is not specific for the object. For suppose within class A, let's consider class A have int A, B, C. I have 3 variables. Along with this variable, I have static int D. Let's consider I have in this way. What does it mean? For suppose if I create object for this A class, for suppose A space object 1 equal to something new A. So you have written everything. So for this object 1, it will have separate memory for A, B, C. But D is common for all the objects of this class A. What is D? D is common for all the objects. For suppose for A class I have object 2. For object 2 also, for variables A, B, C, we will get separate memory locations. But D is common. D is common for both the objects, for object 1 as well as object 2. So whenever we have declared any variable as static, this variable or this method can be accessed with the name of the class. So generally how you will invoke a variable? So you can able to invoke any variable with object name dot that particular member name. So in this way you will invoke. But coming to class, static variables, you have to invoke static variables with class name. How you have to invoke? You have to invoke it with the class name. If you try to invoke it with the object name, then your compiler will raise compile time error. You can't able to call static variables with object name. Did you understand? Let's see one example for this. Let's see here. So in A class, I'm declaring int A comma B comma C. Int B. For A class, I have created obj1, object 1. In the same way, I'm creating one more object, O2 equal to new A of. Here you can, let's copy this. Sorry, it will throw an error, sorry. So we don't have this sample right here. Now, did you observe for O1, For A, separate memory location, B, separate memory location, C, separate memory location has been created. For O2 also, for A, B, C, separate memory location has been created. For if you consider D, in case of D, it is a static field. It is common to both O1 and O2. So it is common to both object 1 and object 2. You can't able to create separate memory location for both the instance. So normal member variables is considered as instance variable, and any variable which is defined as static, these variables are considered as class variables. So here which one is class variable and which one is not a class variable, ma? Here int a, b, c is considered as non-class, I mean instance. So these are considered as instance variables. So while explaining you about variables, I told you that we have instance variables as well as class variables. So whenever we have defined any variable as static, that comes under class variable. So you can able to call that particular variable with class name. So suppose here void display, I'm just want to display values, display system dot out dot println. I just want to display a value of A and value of B. Amma, if you want, please note down these programs which I am executing in compiler. Please note down these programs. These are not present in PPT. See. In the same way, you can, as D also, it's a variable inside the class, so you can directly use it. If you throw any error, then we will change. D colon, I'm using D. Next here, what I'm doing means, for O1 dot A, I'm assigning some values. Let's see here, O1 dot A equal to 10, OB dot O1 dot B equal to 20. For object 1, I'm assigning values 10, 20, 30. In the same way, for object 2, variables instantiation for OB A equal to 11, O2 dot B equal to 12, O2 dot C equal to something like 13. I'm giving it as 13. Let's see. Now, how I can give value to D? How I can give value to this D? So can I give it with the help of object name? No, I can't give. So how I can give? I can give it with the name of class. So A dot class name dot that variable name. So whenever I declare any variable as static, I have to call that variable with class name. Remember this point. Always you have to call static variable or static method with class name, because this is specific to the class. I mean, these are common to all the objects. Whenever you feel one property is common and fixed value for all the objects, you have to declare that variable or that method as static. So I'm just giving the value 50. Now, after giving values, let's call this display function O1 dot display. I'm calling O2 dot display. Let's execute this. Let's see whether we will get any error or we can. Okay. So always your program execution will start from main. Next, next, next. For OB1, we have created some physical memory location. Next. Next, for OB2, we have created some physical memory location. Next. After completion of this, I have physical memory location of for O1 and O2. Next, what I'm doing, I'm assigning value for A, B, C in O1. A value is 10, B value is 20, C value is 30. So if you observe, these values are not affecting in second object because these objects are specific for each and every object. So next, if I call with O2.a, in O2 object, A instance variable values will be changing. 12, 13. Next, D. What is the type of D? D is of type static. So these values won't be changed. I mean, it is common for all the objects. So D value 50. Next, if I press display function, what happens if I press display function? A value, B value, C value, D value will be printed. So A value is 10, B value 20, C value 30, and D value is 50. If I call this display function with O1, let's call with O2. If I call the same function with O2, what are the values? A value is 11, B value is 12, C value is 13, but D value is common because it is static variable. It is common for all the objects. Did you understand the difference? For instance variable, these values are specific to each and every instance. Instance means nothing but object. These values are specific for each and every object. Whereas coming to class variables, these class variables values is common for all the instances. Did you understood this concept? Did you understood this concept? No? So as I already told you, we have to call method or variable with class name if you declare it as static. Okay, we will stop here.